Imagine, for a moment, that you have been transported back in time to the year 371 BC, a pivotal moment in ancient history. For over 2 centuries, the Greek city-state of Sparta had stood unrivaled on the battlefield, dominating the known military world. Renowned for their seemingly invincible warriors and unmatched combat tactics, the mere mention of Sparta struck terror into the hearts of kings and generals alike. This formidable military powerhouse was characterized not only by their rigorous training and discipline, but also by a societal structure entirely devoted to the art of war. However, on a fateful day on the plains of Lyra, everything changed. A mere few hours of conflict obliterated 3 centuries of Spartan military supremacy, irrevocably reshaping the trajectory of Greek history. What is perhaps most remarkable about this transformation is the tactical innovation that facilitated idea, so simple, yet profoundly ingenious that it would redefine warfare for the next millennium. This is the extraordinary story of the Battle of Leuctra, where a brilliant general named Epaminondas unveiled what could be deemed the first true revolutionary secret: weapon and military history not reliant on advanced technology or weaponry, but rather on an innovative concept that empowered ordinary soldiers to dismantle the most dominant military formation of the ancient world. Before delving into the details of this significant confrontation, it's crucial to understand what made Sparta not just a formidable military presence, but a unique entity in human history. Spartan society was meticulously crafted around the principle of warfare. From their earliest days, Spartan boys were scrutinized for their physical strength and military potential. And those deemed weak or defective met a grim fate, abandoned in the wilderness. The fortunate few who survived this brutal selection process were integrated into a state-sponsored education system known as the agoge at the tender age of 7. For the next 13 years, these boys endured a rigorous and often merciless training regimen designed to forge them into exceptional soldiers. Comfort, luxury, and even sufficient food were stripped away. They learned to survive through ingenuity and stealth, mastering the art of stealing food to satiate their hunger. They braved harsh winters without warm clothing, slept outdoors, faced regular beatings not as punishments, but as preparation for enduring pain. However, the deepest aspect of the agoge was not the physical endurance it instilled, but the psychological conditioning it promoted. These young men were indoctrinated to regard their identity and worth solely within the context of the Spartan military unit. They did not fight for personal triumph or wealth. Their lives were wholly dedicated to combat, as fighting was the very essence of their existence. By the age of 20, those who survived the grueling training became full-fledged soldiers, yet their devotion to the martial lifestyle remained unwavering. Professional pursuits, trade, and even conjugal life were deferred until the age of 30. Combat was their singular purpose. The result of this relentless system created a soldier unlike any the world had seen before. Spartans were not only technologically adept and masterful in the phalanx formation, but they also possessed a level of discipline and cohesion that bordered on the supernatural. In battle, the Spartans moved as a single entity. Their spears clashed in unison, shields formed a seamless barrier, and the rhythmic sound of their footsteps echoed like an impending earthquake. However, the true strength of the Spartans extended beyond their individual prowess. A significant psychological component contributed to their legendary reputation, the belief that retreat was tantamount to dishonor. Unlike other Greek soldiers who might waver under duress, Spartans would hold their positions to the death. This conditioning instilled a sense of inevitability in their enemies, who would often find themselves psychologically defeated before the battle even commenced. Facing the Spartan phalanx was akin to confronting a force of nature. The formation itself was not an invention of Sparta, as other Greek armies employed the phalanx as well. Yet the Spartans perfected it to an extent that rendered it the most lethal weapon of the ancient world. Picture a formidable wall of bronze and iron advancing upon you soldiers in the front ranks wielding enormous shields that covered both their bodies and half of their neighbors. Behind them, rows of long spears extend forward like the quills of a giant porcupine. As this intimidating formation approached, the cacophony of clanging shields, the war cries of the soldiers, and the synchronized thudding of thousands of marching feet combined into a terrifying symphony. many enemies would break and flee long before the Spartans reached them. For those who were brave or foolish enough to confront a Spartan phalanx, the reality was even more daunting. Battles were not fought by individual valor, but through a collective push of hundreds of men against one another. In the midst of this combat, frontline soldiers struggled to swing their weapons amidst the press of bodies, relying more on shoves, thrusts from daggers, and strategic jabs of spearheads aimed beneath enemy shields. It was the men in the rear ranks who exerted the force necessary to break through the enemy formation. This collective combat style heavily favored the Spartans, whose superior discipline allowed them to maintain their formation under pressure. Coupled with robust physical conditioning that equipped them to push harder and endure longer. This resolve, ingrained from youth, meant they would not relent even amid hopeless circumstances, ensuring one predictable outcome, time and again. The Spartan phalanxes triumphed, shattering opposing forces. For over 300 years, this strategy had proven unbeatable. The Spartans became the ultimate arbiters of military power in the Greek world, intervening in conflicts, dictating peace, and establishing puppet governments in the wake of their victories. Opposing city-states, often choosing humiliation over annihilation, preferred to submit rather than face the wrath of Sparta. Yet, unbeknownst to them, a severe flaw was lurking beneath the seemingly invincible exterior of the Spartan war machine. Their decades of unparalleled success had bred an institutional arrogance, blinding them to the necessity of adaptation and innovation. They had refined phalanx warfare to such an extent that they could not envision anyone developing a superior strategy. Furthermore, the societal focus on war resulted in a dwindling population of true Spartan citizens. By the early 4th century BC, their numbers had declined alarmingly to a mere few thousand capable soldiers, stark contrast to the tens of thousands of earlier generations. This population crisis compelled Sparta to depend on allies and mercenaries, whose lack of training and discipline steadily eroded the cohesiveness of the Spartan army from within. Against this backdrop of vulnerability, the city-state of Thebes and its extraordinary military leader Epaminondas emerged as a formidable force. Understanding the genius behind Epaminondas' success requires delving into his background and the revolutionary ideas he developed. In contrast to Spartan society, a bastion of militarism, Thebes was primarily a center of commerce and agriculture. Its citizens were primarily farmers, artisans, and merchants rather than professional soldiers. Within the Greek military hierarchy, Thebes was conventionally perceived as a second-rate power, possessing enough strength for self-defense, but lacking the capability to challenge Sparta effectively. Epaminondas, however, was a product of this more diversified society. His education encompassed a wide range of subjects, from military training to philosophy, mathematics, music, and rhetoric. Original thought to tackle long-standing military challenges. When he scrutinized Spartan military tactics, he did so devoid of the reverence traditionally held by other Greek generals. Instead, he approached the Spartan phalanx as a mathematician would, evaluating its strengths and weaknesses while devising ways to exploit the latter. Epaminondas made a profound discovery. While the strength of the Spartan phalanx stemmed from its cohesion, that same cohesion presented a vulnerability. The challenge lay in figuring out how to breach this cohesion. Since the Spartan phalanx appeared virtually invulnerable, it was robust in the center and on the flanks. With evenly distributed troops, the solution Epaminondas devised was shockingly simple, yet revolutionary. Concentrate the entirety of his force at a single point to create overwhelming local superiority, overpowering even the disciplined Spartans. This concept marked the birth of what military historians would later classify as the oblique formation or deep column of attack. Rather than maintaining a uniform depth across his entire line, Epaminondas chose to concentrate the majority of his troops within a specific sector, where their elite soldiers were typically deployed. The remainder of the Theban army was intentionally weakened to allow this strategy to unfold. Their center and right wings advanced slowly, avoiding direct conflict to buy time. Complementing this grand strategy, Epaminondas instituted additional tactical innovations, including the formation of an elite unit known as the Sacred Band, comprised of 300 soldiers selected for their exceptional courage and skill. This unit would lead the charge against the Spartans, engaging them in direct combat. But perhaps the most crucial aspect of Epaminondas' approach was his focus on the psychological dimension of warfare. He recognized that instilling confidence in his soldiers was essential, if they were to overcome the daunting reputation of the Spartans. To that end, he conducted a month-long campaign of rigorous training and mental fortification, laying out the details of their strategy. While formidable, were not invincible. The chance to put this master plan into action came in the summer of 371 BC. As tensions escalated between Sparta and Thebes, culminating in the inevitability of war, Spartan king Cleombrotus advanced into Theban territory with a formidable army, composed of both Spartan soldiers and allies from various city-states. For the Spartans, this was yet another routine campaign. They had triumphed over Thebes before, and there seemed to be no reason to anticipate any deviation from this pattern. Their strategy was straightforward: march into enemy territory, confront the Theban forces, and secure a decisive victory using time-honored tactics. However, Epaminondas understood that this battle was his pivotal opportunity. Should his strategy fail, Thebes would be decimated, and he would likely face execution. Yet, if it succeeded, he could dismantle Spartan power once and for all. As the two armies gathered on the plains of Leuctra, the terrain appeared ideally suited for the traditional phalanx. Combat both sides had prepared for flat and unobstructed. When the Spartans perceived the Theban army approaching, they promptly arranged themselves into their familiar formation. Their elite soldiers occupied the right flank, a prestigious position, while allied troops filled the center and left. Yet as the Thebans lined up for battle, it became clear to all that something was amiss. Instead of a uniform array that the Spartans expected, the Theban forces displayed a remarkable imbalance, leading to intrigue and ultimately the historical outcome of this monumental clash. The stage was set for one of the most significant battles in ancient history, where both innovative strategy and unwavering belief would collide. Head on with centuries of entrenched martial superiority. Subscribe to our channel and press the bell icon to support our work and never miss an upload. Like, comment, and share.